Hi, I'm Anastasia. I work for Propel, and today I'm going to show you how to make a really simple artist notebook. So I'm using this is called board, so it's just thicker paper. Got it from Officeworks, and this is good for like writing and drawing. And then I've got this fancy pants massive notebook of watercolor paper for painting. The reason I got an A3 sheet is because it's slightly cheaper, kind of per square centimeter, to buy really massive paper and then cut it to size rather than buy like an A4 thingo. But I think what I will do is make a small notebook, like an A5 one. I've got this scrap leather that I picked up from the Perth Artifactory, which I was pretty lucky to get. But you can also go to op shops and kind of see if they have anything lying around. It's pretty rare to find actual bits of leather like this, but sometimes they have old bags and things that you can cut up. Or I was also quite lucky one time and got some nice suede. Well, it wasn't real suede, it was fake suede, but still. And it was in all kinds of funky colours, and I got that for like $3 from Salvos, so it's good to go have a look. Another good tip is a lot of the paper that I normally use for making books, like this is a special book, so I bought paper for it. But usually I like to recycle, so I have paper that I made myself, and I also have paper that I salvaged from a place called Treasure Chest Salvage, which is in O'Connor, and it's a really, really fun shop to check out because it's like a huge warehouse full of junk that's been removed from people's houses, so it's good to have a look through. It looks like I have enough leather to make an A5 book, which is pretty exciting, so I'm going to do that. I'm also going to be using this scrap fabric, so this is just an old curtain. I'm pretty sure this is calico or muslin or something, but you can use kind of any fabric that's like porous because it needs to be able to soak up the glue. We'll be using PVA glue, just your ordinary PVA boy. And I use these things, they're foam brushes, but I only got these recently. I actually used to just use like a piece of kitchen sponge when I was binding books, so you can definitely do that. What else will I be using? I'll be using a needle and thread, and I'll be using this awl. So if you don't have an awl, it's also probably fine to just use an ordinary needle. But I'm going to be using this to put holes in the paper before I sew through. So let's get started. First thing I'm going to do is cut the paper to size. Alrighty, the next thing I'm going to do is stack the paper into stacks of 4, and then, as a 4, fold it in half. And what you have then is called a signature. And then we're going to sew all the signatures together to make the text block. Text block? That's not what it's called. To make the paper block. Alrighty, so the next step is to mark some holes in your signatures. If you're using normal printer paper to make a book, you'll definitely get away with using a needle. This paper is really thick, so you're either going to need a very aggressive needle or an awl, or you can try using like a toothpick or a skewer. Really, you want something that's stabby, and you want to make 4 holes. Because this is a little bit asymmetrical, I'm also going to make a tiny inconspicuous pencil mark right on the spine of this, right on that outer fold, just so I remember which way is up when I'm stacking them all together. So the next thing we're going to do is get some fabric for what's called the tapes, which just kind of helps strengthen the spine of the text block, hold everything together. Alrighty, so we've got holes in all of them now. It's important to remember when you're making a hardcover book that you are going to lose the front page and the back page because they'll get kind of ruined by the glue. So what I'm going to do, seeing as the watercolor paper is so expensive, is I'm just going to kind of sacrifice the board, which is this slightly more creamy paper. I'm just going to make sure that I have a signature of board at the front and one at the back. And kind of make sure it all lines up, that I've kept all of those lead marks on the same side. Good. And then I'm going to start sewing. So what I've got is a needle with doubled over thread for strength. So you pick up one signature to start, you come in through the back, and then don't pull the thread all the way through. Leave yourself a little bit of room because you're going to want to tie a knot. I've detangled it. It's a really fun thing about making books. The longer you make the thread, the less often you will have to rethread your needle, but the more often you will have to stop to detangle it. So either way, you do want to set aside a bit of your time and patience to get this right. I'm just doing your ordinary kind of double knot. I think it's called a wreath knot if we're being technical. And kind of making that as tight as possible. And I'm going to slide my first bit of fabric just on here. This is called a tape, and it sits across the spine of the book. So while you're sewing all of these in, you want to make sure that obviously all the signatures have to be bound to each other, but they also have to be bound to the tape. So you always want to have a thread coming across this tape, and then we're going to put one up here, and we're going to have another thread coming across this tape, and that just gives the spine a lot more strength and stability when it's done. 2 big tips. One of them, watch the thread all the time, because you want to prevent it from snagging, because it's a pain to deal with. My other piece of advice is when you're attaching 2 signatures together, you do not have to sew all the way through one and then kind of go through the other, if that makes sense. Like I'm coming out through the second signature here, and then instead of coming in through this hole and going into the middle of the next signature, I'm gonna do something a little bit sneaky and just go, sorry. I hope you can see that. I'm just gonna go behind this thread, kind of under it, so I'm making a loop around it, like this, and then go back into the signature that I'm working on right now. Boop. This thread keeps getting caught on the edges of the notebook. It's a very common problem. The other common problem that you'll have with the thread, if you're using a doubled over thread like I am, your other common problem will be that it gets uneven. So one side of the thread will be tighter than the other. But if you just keep on sliding your fingers up it like this to kind of smooth it out, you should be able to keep even distance from the eye of the needle. So once you're done sewing, you want to trim those tapes and just glue them down really firmly with plenty of PVA. And it's alright if a bit of the PVA is kind of seeping into the gaps between the signatures. Alright, that's all glued down, and I left it to dry for a little while between 2 heavy books, and now I'm going to put on the other strip that kind of makes up the spine. So if perchance you're watching this and thinking, holy hell, that's a lot of glue, you are absolutely right. You do want to use kind of an inordinate amount of glue when you're doing this. And what you can do is put it directly onto the spine of your paper block, and then put your layer of fabric on top, and then put more glue over the fabric so that it soaks through. So while I'm waiting for the glue to dry on that paper block, I've got 2 A5 bits of cardboard that I cut out, and this is going to be the front and back cover of the book. And I've also got the spine, and I decided to bend it a bit, which is not something I've done before actually. Usually I use just a flat piece of cardboard and put that in the middle there, but I wanted to see if I could get that nice rounded spine that some beautiful old books have. So the way I'm going to do this is glue down the front and back pages, the front and back covers, and then glue down the spine in the middle of them. And what we want to do to make sure that the book can open and close well and also fits the pages neatly is just leave a little gap of like, how big? I'm going to say probably 5 millimeters would actually be enough. You want to make sure you have about 2 centimeters-ish around the whole edge of these cover pieces, because that will allow you to fold these in and secure them and do all your lovely binding business. I'm also just going to gently score it around the edges. And then the next step, once I finish that, is to first of all glue these down and then snip these edges so that when I fold them in, there's not like an awkward blip, 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 you know, this corner thing. So we're just going to snip triangles out of the edges and triangles out of these corners here to help us fold it up around the spine. Cool, so now it's time for more PVA glue, and I'm just going to glue down those cardboard bits to the leather front, and then there'll be a final trim, and then there'll be more PVA glue. Get ready. What I've done is glued the cardboard bits down, and I've cut out the corners so that it will make it easier to fold these over and glue them on in a minute. And then the text block, the paper block, has dried really nicely, and this is what it looks like now. So it's essentially a book. You can open it fully flat, which is nice. This one I also kind of pressed the middle pages back a little bit, so there's a slight curve to the spine, which is the same shape that you see on really beautiful old leather-bound books, and hopefully that'll sit nicely with this curved spine I've made here. So now it's time to put it all together. Obviously you're gonna have to glue these bits down, and then the next bit of gluing that you do is put glue all over the front piece, and you kind of lay the book down onto it like this, lay the paper block down, and you want to make sure that the back of the paper block, the spine, is kind of jutting out slightly over the edge of this cardboard piece. So the very back corner of this is actually sitting in the gutter here between the hard spine and the hard front cover. That makes it possible to open and close the book, basically. And then once that's stuck on, you kind of take the book and fold it over like this so that the paper block is doing the same thing on the other side, you know. Most of it is in contact with the cardboard block, and then, sorry, the cardboard back cover, and then the very back edge of it is jutting out into that gutter. I left this under my law textbook for a while, so it had plenty of pressure on it, and all the glue has dried now, and I'm super happy with how it's turned out. I think what I did do is I probably made the spine a little bit too wide, which is why I've got this big gap here. But that's kind of a good thing, I guess, because it means you can like put a pen in it for storage, maybe, or a pencil. Anyway, yeah, it's a book. You can open it right up. It's nice and flexible, sturdy. What you can do, if you've got thinner paper, it will get totally wrecked by the glue. So you can see even this is like, it's a little bit bumpy. I'm not too fussed about that. I actually think that's a acceptable level of bumpiness, but I was expecting it to be worse. So what I was gonna do was cut out a piece of paper from the front of this magazine, because I think it has a really beautiful pattern on it. And just stick that over the messy part and do the same on this side as well. So they're kind of like, I think they're called end pages. There is a technical name for them, but it just makes things look a bit neater and more exciting. As you can see, the edge of the book has that nice little dip in it, and it's kind of rounded at the back, like really old books are. The rounded spines come out pretty nicely, so yeah, really happy with that. Let me know if you have any questions about how to make this, and please let me know if you're making any of your own books. I'd be super keen to see that. See you next time.